Hello again. I switched game. Everything good? I mean, I suppose. Sure. Nice. Spades. Temperance. Good shit. That's fine. Don't worry. How do you want the Q&A to go? I don't know. Get question, answer question. Why are you gay? I mean, hell, I might answer that question then, huh? Why are you gay? Who says I'm gay? Why was the coral golem not named Reggie Coral? To be honest, if I would have done that, I think Game Freak would have sued me for stealing their stuff. I think. You are gay. Also understandable. I think realistically the coral golem, I thought of the idea and I didn't really think about a different name for it. I wanted to make like a golem that wasn't necessarily created but just like a force of nature. So in terms of designing it, the name was more like, oh, this is a golem. What type of golem? It's a coral golem. That's about it. Mini. Any major regrets for things you included or things you didn't get to include? The big one would be Waterford, I think. It was a location that I was finishing up. It was going to be north of the crossing, and ultimately I kind of decided to remove it. Do I regret it though? I don't know for sure. I think ultimately that's something I regretted not including, in the sense of I prepped something and I never got to use it. It's always kind of bad practice. But something I regret including, was there anything in particular that I regretted including? Nothing I can think of, for one. If I think of anything, I'll let you know. Oh shit, did I think I lost on that one? All I can do. Oh well. Damn. Oh, something I do regret not including, I guess, is the figures, the miniatures for the final boss. I wish I could have included that. Any storylines you had to scrap because character died? Also, do you have any questions for particular players? Any storyline you had to scrap because character died? I think storylines a little bit, but they're still part of the world. For example, Definor and Walleye. Both Definor and Walleye, since they died, I had to scrap certain encounters. I still decided to include some because I feel like, weirdly enough, even though they caused them to happen, they didn't need to be there for the resolution. Let's see. One storyline that I kind of had to scrap was obviously the merging of dragons for Definor and the encounters for Walleye. I think Walleye's story was a bit more interesting to write because I really didn't have much to go off of. Then again, the solution for that problem I think was pretty cool, where I figured there was gonna be like a new version of him, and the question would be, would he prove himself to be better than his upgrade? I kind of wanted to go that route. Ultimately didn't get to do it, but yeah. More of a bummer, I suppose. I think that might not even have been necessarily stopped because of the character death, but more so because we didn't have much time to explain how and why it even happened in the first place. Because it would only be relevant for one player, and that player kind of has a new character to focus on. So I usually refrain from doing that kind of thing. Generally. Storylines I had to scrap. I guess the one from Definor. I was like, we both agreed, me and the player, that his powers would be delayed, but they would come naturally to him in a growing manner, in a how do you say? They like his powers were more focused on developing them. So using them in certain ways or combining them was gonna be the key to his character and how he would play it. Oh, hello, new person. So yeah, to get back to the answer, any storylines I had to scrap. Well, Definor's would be a bit. I kind of had to scrap that because his character was pretty integral to what would happen. So I decided to just make the final encounter be a generic encounter, but other than that, I kind of had to scrap it. To be fair, I was gonna have him meet someone who had similar powers to himself, and also kind of like a rival character and stuff. Also, I would have taken the Gullop idea in a completely different direction if Defner was still alive, so maybe it was a good thing overall, which I can't say, but I still did. But yeah. As for questions for particular, you can't say. Depends. I mean, I'm gonna play open cards on the whole campaign if you want. I just still don't know what I can say. Oh yeah. What would you have continued somehow if we all didn't die in that Wendigo encounter? As I said, I would have introduced a rival character to Definor. One who would be kind of his extreme, like the power-hungry version of him. And they would become a moon dragon, or try to become a moon dragon by absorbing dragon cores, but instead of melding together with them, they would just drain them of their strength and enhance its own core. Which is, of course, vastly different from what happened. But it would be, so to speak, like a human dragon hybrid as a fight. Also a missed opportunity for an ally, I suppose. The one that you fought at the end, the Dragonborn with the 4 arms, that one was gonna be like a follower of... well, he was a follower of Ashuriok, which is the dragon that Definor got his first powers from. And you would have met him before he got on the big bad side. In this case, I was like, you know what? I think this kind of sort of counts as not having done that, so that's what I went with in the final cut. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of in the same way as Brill. Of course, the rival would then be on the opponent's side. So it was kind of like, do you rather want to have a Moondragon or a Dragonborn on your side? So that was kind of the major difference. As for Walleye, as I said before, Walleye's story was more so going to be being replaced by a newer version of himself, which he could defeat and prove to all of Mechanus that newer is not always better and stuff like that. Also, it would have been interesting, like the direction Walleye was taking, I wasn't really expecting. Because it became far more broad than I thought. So I was like, oh, you know, realm of justice. Justice is going to be his thing, right? He's going to judge everyone. And then to some extent he did. And I was like, yeah, put that against like a bad guy and you'll get like a discussion, like like you are definitely deserving of punishment if you look at the morality of this plane, right? So that would have been a reason why why Walleye would also be opposed to Vilmoyas, because he would threaten like the balance of the plane potentially. He was being very unethical, and it was clear to see that he wasn't really using justice in the same way as the rest of the plane's inhabitants. So that would have been interesting to see. There would also be a lot more Modrons that would show up and a lot more technology. I did end up scrapping most of that because I didn't want to make the current storyline more confusing by like leftover stuff. That would not relate to literally anyone. So the only thing that I kind of regret forgetting about was that at the very end, on the exit scene, basically, like the very last scene, I still don't know who ended up with the chip. Yeah, of course. I don't know who has Walleye's floppy disk in the end. Kind of feels like yeah, the floppy disk. Kind of feels like a missed thing because it's kind of a very very interesting, unique object in the plane. At this point, it's like some of his memories are still on there. So yeah, I'm guessing Gisra as well. He still had it. He's the last one who had it. So. Lipik. There. So that's that. I do make it a point to use stuff that I've prepared, but just use it differently if it doesn't work out. Also regret you... Also anything you regret us doing or not doing. A ton. Probably. But that's the life of a DM, I think. Like, regret is kind of a big word. I think there's some things where I was kind of excited to do something with, and then it ended up different, and usually I still was like, yeah, you know what? Perfectly fine. Um, I'm thinking of what though? Because there were some specific things and also some more generic things. I think first thing that comes to mind because it's the most recent, the having dinner with Vilmoyas, I was like, you know what, that might be half a session, so we might have to split it up into another session anyway. So we would have a three-parter in terms of the finale, um, which I'm not sure if that would have been better, but I did have some stuff prepared because I still feel like you guys missed out on his motives and roleplay opportunities with the big bad, which you've technically only met in game for like not even an hour, like face to face. So that was kind of a shame in a way. Um, Still, I don't really mind. It was more so that I was kind of interested in how it would go. Like I was, it's kind of like watching a movie and hoping that a certain scene will happen, you know? And it ended up not happening, and I was like, okay, you know what? It's fine. Let's get to the nitty and gritty right away. Um, I'm thinking what else. Something that I mean, it's not really something that you did or didn't do. It was more so there was this villain, kind of the fire element, the wildfire elemental, like the little bits and pieces that were in the jars. Um, as they were being released, they would kind of combine and all that, and eventually something uh, would happen. I need lower cards. Okay, you know what? That's fine. I kind of wanted to see some villains succeed a bit more before they were getting struck down, is more where I'm getting at. Which is something that technically you caused, but it makes sense because villains are to be defeated, right? I think in some cases I would have liked to have more conversation between characters. What do I... I'm sure there's better examples for what, for like in terms of regrets towards the players, but I can't think of any right now. Probably should have prepared something like that, you know. What was the most difficult fight for you to DM? Most of the spellcasters were kind of overwhelming, especially if I didn't really play them myself for any amount of time. I'm usually kind of overwhelmed by the number of spells that I don't know the rules exactly of. That's usually kind of a problem, but yeah, what's the best example for that, huh? I guess maybe the zombie fight in the Haunted Mansion, like the Riddlewood Mansion. I think that might have been the most difficult fight to DM because I had to keep track of a lot of statuses and even like a certain order of NPCs and also all the spells and legendary abilities of the main boss, like Valeria. I think that might have been the most difficult one to DM. And I definitely could have prepped it better as well. Which general interactions between party members did you like best? Between party members? I kind of liked. I gotta be honest. I kind of liked the bro moments between, and this is not. Don't take this the wrong way, but the bro moments between Gisra and Karak, because again, those two were still left over from the original party composition, and they were kind of getting friendly with each other outside of the rest, like aside from the other two. And the bickering between Rodney and Benito, I also quite enjoyed. Although I didn't really expect the final "I'm almost gonna kill you" scene. That felt a bit odd to me, but at the same time I'm also like, yeah, you know what? I know who the players behind the characters are, so I guess it makes sense. But I like both of those. I think like a certain rivalry or like a legitimate reason to hate a fellow character that normally you wouldn't, like because you just know each other in real life and you're friends and stuff. I think that's kind of interesting because you're like that might be the most difficult ways to roleplay and still like one of the most rewarding ones as well. Also, I think that both of those things, like the bro moments between Karek and Gisra, and the bickering between Rodney and Benito, I think the epitome of that, which was also one of my favorite moments, was the fight, the end of the fight between the Krusty Krabs versus the Daughters of the Liar. Mostly because not everyone was on the same page, and that was probably a first for the entire campaign, for the entire party. I think I liked that one best because it really showed everyone's emotions and their motives, like their motivation. So yeah, but yeah, conflict makes good for good roleplay. It just kind of got confirmed again for me. Last question that I see in chat so far. What are some of your favorite NPCs from this campaign? Obviously Gullop. Act 3 really really pulled through in a big way for me in the sense of NPCs being very fucking audible, I guess. Like, I think Gullop is one of the characters you guys interacted with the most out of like any character in the entire campaign. Especially like considering he was kind of an accident. Like he wasn't really intended to be this sort of relevant for anything that I intended. I think that's kind of an achievement in and of itself, that it kind of worked out. Also, role-playing him was just a high-pitched voice and being kind of naive. But other than that, I really liked how he came together, and I feel like everyone else did too, which always feels like great. Tom was also kind of fun to play with in terms of roleplay, although I'm kind of like, he's just kind of a talking backpack. And I mean, look at Dora the Explorer. No one really likes the talking backpack all that much. I was kind of thinking that his gimmick was wearing thin. And he would have probably been a lot more interesting to roleplay for me if he actually did something other than being carried around. So that might be where I land on that. I was considering, by the way, like since I'm talking about NPCs anyway, one of the NPCs that I was looking for a place to reintroduce was Ermika, the sister of Karek and Defanor. I was kind of hoping I would find like a good reason why she would be reintroduced without her just being a victim of some kind. Because, you know, I kind of like the idea of her like somehow like following the party all the way through because of, you know, like following the party on her own, like hitchhiking and stuff, just like out of a feeling of helping out, being a good idea. I was definitely playing with that idea, and I almost did it. And then there was the letter that you guys sent to that place, and I was like, you know what? I can do more interesting stuff with that. So ultimately, that might be the the reason why I didn't do that. Don't know if that was a shame to anyone, but you know, I think I probably would have fucked it up if we did it any other way with Ermika. So yeah, that was probably fine the way we did it. In the end, I didn't have that many NPCs that were really like clicking in any particularly good way. Because I mean, we didn't really have that many different interactions with like randos. I think the grandma was also kind of reoccurring joke at some point. It was like, yeah, let's give her Smut. Yeah, let's give her his number and stuff. But yeah, I think it's gonna be Gullop, Tom, and Ermika. Even though one of them we literally haven't seen past session 2. So I'm not sure if that one counts, but still. Yeah, I would have loved more. Would love. I yes. Yeah, I would love to have more with the fam. Yeah. Would have kind of been nice to roleplay that as well. Oh, actually, we should probably like go back a little bit, like a previous question. I have another answer actually. Any storylines you had to scrap because character died? Well, not because of character death necessarily, in the sense of dying as a character, but I did have a certain quest in mind, or like a quest line in mind for Nami, obviously, which we never really got around to do. But ultimately, I can give you the rundown if you guys are interested. Nami's story was mostly that she needed to go to a very specific point in the sea to help a certain spirit cross over to the other side, which was her thing. And she believed that she was one of the reasons that person died in the first place, because of some accident, and that's also the impetus of her learning her abilities to make other people cross over. Ultimately, the problem kind of became, well, first you need a ship, because giving you a ship in this campaign is kind of OP, and it gives you something to do as well, like something to aim for. So that was all fine and dandy. That was like clear cut. But after you guys got the ship, she kind of stopped playing. But if you guys would have continued with her in that sense, or if she continued playing, she would have ended up at the spot where the spirit would have been in the sea, like a little buoy out on the sea. And I don't remember if I had set it in stone or anything, but what I do know is that they would not be there, the spirit would not be there, but there was also no, like, there was still like a strange section of ocean in which there was no peace at all. Like there's clearly something still lingering here, haunting it, like faces appear in the water and stuff. Like there's still like a lot of spiritual shenanigans going on in that place. So what do we do now? You know, that was kind of the thing. And eventually the spirit would have joined a group of spirits that linger this sea, and they would kind of become a like ghost pirate crew who were also looking for a ship, and were gonna take over the ship that she bought and to get there. And ultimately what they really wanted was to just be on the sea again, but not like haunting, but like, you know, as their previous lives, resulting in a pirate ghost pirate crew that she could commandeer as the captain. That was the gist of her quest line, which would also unlock like fast travel between certain points and summoning one or multiple of those ghosts to her side in combat. And I was thinking of like a little animal companion, like a ghost animal companion, like a spirit monkey, or like a chewinga or something like that. That could just be there as well as a little mascot character. There was also the coral golem, which grew with her souls that she would like take. If she would defeat an enemy, she got like a soul trinket, and if she uses those trinkets on the coral golem, they could grow back to their regular size eventually. That was something that was also still in the works. But yeah, that obviously, you know, we never really got around to do that, so yeah. So that's that long ramble, but that's also something that I kind of had to scrap. That one didn't really come back to any capacity. I think I kind of was like, yeah, if she ever comes back around to play, because she's technically not dead, and will progress to some point in that quest line. But yeah, we never did. So I think I did describe the ship with the ghost crew in the final episode, so to speak, the final look back to where are they now. That Benito was being brought over to his own continent on a ghost ship, pretty much, or like a ghost pirate ship. Obviously, that was Nami's doing. I was wondering if there's anything else to think about. Maybe it might be also interesting if I ask a question to you all. Something that you guys wanted to do but never got around to do in the campaign. You would have loved to know what the blood rune did. Yeah. I must have that somewhere on my PC here. Yeah, ultimately I kind of regret making like the rune system myself, like expanding upon it, but never like going in depth on how that happened. The worst thing we missed out on, according to you, I mean, do you mean like worst thing as in the thing you guys missed that I was the most excited for, or something that you missed out on which was also the like something bad, like something that wasn't worth doing? Also, in the meantime, I'm looking up where I stored what the blood rune did, because I know that I wrote it down. Not that one. I think it was this one. Oh, yeah, the blood rune. In the end, the base power of it would be to gain resistance against radiant damage. And it would have also been a hint towards your, like, far, far away lineage as a far descendant of the Sun Giants. That's what the blood rune was for. Like, on one hand, like, all giants stem from the Sun Giants, was the idea. And then, in addition to that, it was it would give you some protection against radiant damage. The worst thing that you missed out on, I think one thing that I kind of feel like that was a very, like, a big missed opportunity was the you guys never met the one in charge of the grove, of the druid grove. That was quite a shame, I would say. I think that was also one of the first plans I had when prepping the character for the very first time. I was like, yeah, I want to have this super awesome dryad, like this ancient dryad, which like controls not just like one tree, but you know, a whole forest that is like her mother tree. And like just like normally dryads in D&D, hold up, I'll look it up. I know that difficulty class or or a challenge rating doesn't really mean much in some cases, but dryads are, yeah, challenge rating 1, and they are considered like pretty like impactful creatures normally. They like decide everything that goes on in like entire forests, where I'm like, yeah, okay, but if you light a match, then they are just they're out of there, right? They can't really survive for that long. So I was like, okay, how about we make an actual dangerously strong, like super influential dryad that the party wouldn't be able to just ignore and just wouldn't be able to just fuck with. And that kind of became the basis for the Grove, where the whole ecosystem was set up and maintained by this singular entity of nature. And that was gonna be that was the start of me creating the Grove. And ultimately, I kind of hinted at like, oh, there are some people in charge, but they're all copies of each other and they regrow and stuff. Those are all like sort of extensions from all this, like all from the same root, so to speak. The same, yeah, the same root. All by this one dryad. But ultimately, you guys kind of left without ever having met her, I think? Like, not face to face, at the very least. So I think that was something that I would have liked to show off. But mostly because when I first started prepping for this campaign, like years ago, like 4 years ago or something like that, that was one of the first ideas that came to mind, was like, yeah, this whole area might be a real cool change of pace, and like a safe haven in like a pretty difficult to live world, a pretty tough world. So I think that. So is there any regrets that you have as players? Like, aside from missing out on stuff, but like, I mean, that could be one, but something that you felt like you did wrong or did dirty or wanted to see a different side of, or something like that? Dying? Yeah. On one hand, I wish I had taken the lunch with Valmois, but it made no sense at the time. Hmm. Here's my retort. Would killing like random people because they look dangerous be like make more sense than having a talk with the person you've been looking for? It was after the fight with the Wendigo that I realized I could have saved myself if I went to fight back as opposed to running away. As in, your character could have done more? Would they have survived then? Because I feel like he still had a good chunk of health left when you guys were gone. Sure. Yeah. Get rid of these. What was your guys' favorite? Oh, the character could have survived fighting back. It didn't have much health left, otherwise the other two wouldn't have made it either. I suppose so. Yeah. Yeah, I think they distracted it with fire at one point, which it just is scared of, even though it's, I think, resistant to it. It's still scared of fire. Yeah. What was your guy in your opinion like the most memorable fight? Like the most memorable combat? Also, I'm taking a small bathroom break. I'll just leave it in chat just to remind. Alright, I'll be right back, then I'll read your answers. Alright, I'm back. Fully and completely. So, favorite fights. Alright, the Wendigo. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think that was more of yeah. It was meant to be like a set piece for in the background because it was like very clearly something to be avoided. The moment you guys were luring it out, I think I was okay, we're gonna do this, huh? Didn't really expect it. I think it did create some of the most interesting moments in the oh, most memorable. Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I mean it was a set piece, so yeah, for sure, makes sense. Vilmoyus and the Yellow Dragon. I mean, Vilmoyus, I hoped that one's pretty memorable because it's the last thing, it's the thing we closed out on. Yellow Dragon. What made that one memorable? Because I kind of feel like that on the day itself, I kind of felt like it flopped. Even maybe I'm just being a little bit too harsh on it, but that was the feeling I got from it. Was it because it was like a dragon fight in general, or was it something specifically why that one was memorable? For me, second was of course the final battle, but also the coral golem fight. Yeah, I kind of like that one too. That one was, um, for me, memorable as well, mostly because it was on the sea. I don't think if it would have been that interesting if it was the same villain on the land. It um, it was memorable because it was a dragon fight at level 3 or 4 or something. So the oh fuck level was a bit higher than usual. I think so as well. I still think you guys did extremely well. Um, yeah. I don't really remember exactly why, but I did have the feeling at the time that I fucked it up somehow. Yeah, don't really know why exactly. Second course was the 15 rogues fight at the mountain entrance. Oh yeah, the rogue fight. My god. Yeah, the rogues fight. That was funny in hindsight. Was it though? No, not in the moment. It was hilarious. I'm glad you liked it. After the fact. Kind of interesting. I didn't think it was gonna be that big of a deal. I think, yeah, exactly. Torture during the session. There was an oh shit moment somewhere early on in that, in the mountain fight, and I don't even remember exactly what it was, which I'm kind of ashamed to say. Third has to be the manor fight. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, in my opinion, it was one of my favorite fights in the entire campaign, but it might have also been one of the most tedious. Case in point, the fact that it took way longer than any other fight. Which in my opinion still is kind of baffling looking back. I really can't put my finger on why exactly it took 3 sessions instead of just 1 or 2 at most. The final, well, yes and no. I mean, the manor fight took a full session and 2 half sessions. The final fight took 2 sessions as well, so it might be like comparative. But in terms of how long we spent in general, I think stretching over like 3 weeks worth of D&D compared to 2, you know, you love to build up to it. For which fight? Mansion. Yeah, with all the servants and stuff. Yeah. I mean, no complaints from me there. I think I had an idea in my head and I executed it in a fun way. Still a bit of a shame that it took that long, but you know. Amazing. Whoa. Oh yeah, cool. Oi, oi, oi. Yeah. So I'm more curious about how I can improve as a DM. Because I'm still DMing, just not for this group for now. Was there any, like, particular pieces of advice I would maybe need? What do you think could use the most improvement? I don't fucking know. If I knew, I probably would have solved the problem. We don't either. Or at least I'm not sure. I think like general knowledge about the rules might be something that I should brush up on if I know it will come to play in a session, for example. Like in that way, I should prep better. Maybe also like putting kind of what you call it, making like miniatures and stuff work for more than just the final fight might have been fun. Should have had a 3D printer. Yeah, maybe. Bit pricey. Yeah. Doesn't really matter. I think something I definitely appreciate about this group as well is that homebrew is like a-okay most of the time. I can't really think of a situation where it's like, hey, wait, you're doing it wrong because we know better than you what you had in mind for this creature. And I'm like, well, I mean, I designed it, you know, stuff like that. I don't think we ever really had arguments about it. I don't think, at least. Sure. I don't mind custom monsters, CR shit anyway. Yeah, exactly. I definitely prefer meaningful encounters more than beat sticks, generally. I mean, it's subjective anyway, so. Kind of a shame that the rest didn't show up, mostly because I kind of wanted to discuss what the next step is going to be in our group in terms of what we're going to play next. Kind of discussed it here. We could have. You are. If he's resisting, then that them's the breaks. We're currently playing a game. Okay, okay. Could have done a lot of things, bub. Didn't always work out. I mean, we're still missing out on Wouter, but I think he's okay with anything that isn't 5th edition. A random rank could be fun. Five. I mean, I guess. Making a copy. I'll do this one. Yeah, probably better. And more discards. Actually, I have to put my laptop on charger. Otherwise, I can't read chat for longer than 2 seconds before it fades away. Also, kind of wish I had a better setting that we played in. Jesus, one blind. That's fine. Ooh, so close. Okay, well, I'm gonna assume that Tristan doesn't care to show up for now. Doesn't really matter much if Wouter's not also here anyway. Is there anything else we still should discuss? I don't really know. Next campaign. Well, I mean, Wouter isn't here to agree or disagree. Same with Tristan. So, I mean, we could talk about it, but it will mostly be just us three giving our voices. Oh, you know what? One question that I still have, because I feel pretty confident about my own opinion on that, but I'm not sure what you guys are thinking, because we didn't really discuss it at all. How about the length of the campaign that we just did? How was that? Just one shots? To what question is that an answer? Well, let's see. Ah, okay. We got it. Oh, as an idea for next campaign, you mean? Just one shots. I mean, personally, I don't mind. I don't think I care for that. Length of the campaign too short. We finished it, so we can't. We finished it, so it can't have been long enough. Okay. Whatever, man. I'm kind of confident with this being the right length. I feel like how should I say? I think we don't know how to quit. Yeah, you're saying that now. You're just agreeing with me because I'm so persuasive. Though I have a thought on that. Ooh, tell me. Which has to do with character investment and campaign speed out afterwards. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah. I definitely have an opinion on that, for sure. So I don't want any of these. Perfect. I feel like you're formulating like a thesis or something or question. How much time should be invested in the characters you play versus the world they are in? How much time should be invested in the characters you play versus the world they are in? I think that really depends on who runs the campaign, in a way. So let's complete the question in that case. In my campaign? Is that what you're asking it for? Non-general. Okay. I still think it kind of depends on how the person runs their campaigns. Because in some worlds there isn't really, like, the point isn't to get invested in the world, mostly just the characters. But in terms of the characters you yourself play versus the world they're in... Okay, explain that first then, I think. Yeah, I might be missing some context. I mean, I do have an opinion about it, obviously. I'm very opinionated, if need be. If we invest a lot of character in D&D and they die, we as a group tend to somewhat lose interest in the campaign afterwards. Is that true? In this campaign, that kind of didn't happen. Yeah, I feel so. I feel like that is true. I think that we as a group might not necessarily be as harsh compared to the player who lost the character. I think that holds a little bit more weight, I think. Because I don't feel like we halt an entire campaign because one person died. I think it's mostly the character who gets less invested because they have to use a new character that they aren't invested in yet, even though the rest is all very excited still. So that kind of like balances out to a meh for a while. But, you know. Okay. Do you have an example? Grubber. If Karak had died at the same time as Tristan's character, would the rest of the party still be interested in going against Vermoyas? The Daughters of the Liar didn't really have anything to do with certain characters, I would say. Except you probably referred to that they would have never met them. I mean, you would lose a little bit of context, but we as players do know the context, right? In a sense, how I usually run my campaigns is that, at least this one, is that there is that, like, I'm beginning at the end. Usually when designing it, I'm beginning at the very end. And I do make sure that the bad guy is relevant for everyone's character. So in terms of motivation, there should still be a way to get some kind of motivation in whatever character you play to actually continue. too invested in our characters? I don't know. I don't really know what too invested looks like in this case. Being too invested but then proceed to be bored of the campaign, I'm not really sure. Like, when you say too invested, do you refer to getting demotivated when your character dies? Like you no longer care about the story? Like in comparison to the campaign itself? Because I guess I could see that. Get the fuck out of here. They are not expendable in any way. In some ways that is good, but in some ways that can be bad. I would say that I do like being invested in your own character and in your fellow party's characters. But I also think that might influence the way we play a lot is what we prioritize in a campaign in terms of goals. I mean, it's kind of annoying for me to bring this up again, I guess, but I'll do it anyway because it does display a certain way of thinking. I think every type of yeah, exactly. Yeah, it can definitely be a major demotivator. I think a lot of character death is also very preventable, is kind of where I diverge in opinion on that, because I do agree it can be a major demotivator, but if a character that has meaning, I tend to be more fine with it versus getting blown to bits in an alleyway with no one there to even care, you know? Or slipping on ice and losing consciousness instantly, getting crit because someone steps on you, dying and stuff. Like that kind of death, I feel doesn't happen a lot, of course, but that's different from dying a heroic death while defending an ally, and then a new character shows up a little bit later to take their place with a completely different motivation. I feel like that there's room for that, at least for me there is. Does that mean I'm not invested in my previous character? I mean, not at all. I feel like I'm quite invested in any character I make, otherwise I probably would get bored of playing them pretty quickly. Which, is that a problem? Not really. If you can pivot to putting your focus on a different character, I think that's fine. I think the question might be more about, can you deal with your own character dying and still having fun? Like if the only way to have fun is not dying, then I would say either don't fight as much, or like don't focus on fighting as much, which obviously is also dependent on the DM, or how do you say, yeah, I mean, I would still be like fine to make a new character, I would say. How do you feel about the situation of the shift and dynamics after characters died and new one is introduced? I think it can be very interesting, but yeah, like this is kind of where I put the, well, blame is not really, but like the responsibility also a little bit on the players. If you half-ass a character when making a new character after your old one has died, I think you will get that problem automatically. If that makes sense? Like that, the problem becomes if your character, if you make a new character and you're trying desperately to replace what's been lost, then don't play with character deaths. Full stop. I feel like if it's meaningful enough for your character to die, it might be a pretty interesting moment that you can reflect on, that you can play with as DM as well, that you can even play with as survivor next to it. But like I do get why you're calling it a problem, because for that one person it might not be as fun. Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think something that you could do is discuss with your DM, like, I really don't want my character's life to be in constant peril because I kind of want to, you know, explore him a bit more. You can do something like that. But what if half-assing the character happened because they lost motivation in the campaign after their character died? So what if the original death leads them to half-assing the next one? Well, because that kind of makes that kind of is the difference between a cool new dynamic or a crappy dynamic. I'm sorry, but I have to go for a bit. Thanks for this, though. Your stream's pretty good. I mean, thanks, I guess. I don't appreciate you lying to me, though. But yeah, don't be sorry for having to go. I'll see you in a bit if you come back. What if your original death leads them into half-assing the next one? Well, yeah, as I said, that is probably the main impetus of like a shift in dynamics mostly. I mean, you're gonna have different dynamics because you're playing a different personality usually. But the rest is not really... How do you say? Preventable, I guess? To put it a different way, what would need to change for that not to be an issue? Because taking away death is usually a loss in investment as well. Because like, well, yeah, I kind of can do whatever I really want. It's not really anything that can stop me. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna die or anything. And I know it's not that black and white, but I feel like unintentionally you do lean towards getting more riskier and riskier until it gets ridiculous in what you're trying to survive. If that makes sense. Push. So what would need to be different in that case? Like how do we, in that sense, run it wrong? I'd say making the characters more expendable in a way. So the problem is getting invested in the first place then. I think to put it bluntly, losing a character is supposed to suck. I think that's where my mind goes to. Less invested, maybe? I'm not really sure. I mean, I like being invested, even when I lose a character. But I don't think... I know you're not saying that necessarily, but I think that's mostly the player that has to find a solution for that. You say that, but... Yeah. What about plot points you make for a specific character? I mean, I move them. As a DM, it's my responsibility to make sure that there is a world to be lived in. That's a kind of an interesting suggestion you're making in the first place. Are you invested in a player character as a DM? I mean, kind of. But at the same time, I'm more interested in how people play their characters rather than the characters they play themselves, because seeing the wheels turn in real time, I think that's for me a major reason why I like DMing. Not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. It's a lot like people watching, which, I mean, there's how do you say that? There's levels to that shit between interesting and creepy. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. I think like I cannot get behind the idea of, well, if they're more expendable, we'll have more fun, because if they die, we won't be discouraged right away. I think not being invested in the character also gets you discouraged, but from the get-go. It's kind of like I don't remember what it's called, but it's like when you are considering getting a pet, but being worried before you even buy it, like, well, it's gonna die anyway, so I might as well not get a pet. But I mean, the way there is kind of why you're getting a pet, right? Not the result. Because I mean, a campaign might stop before the character dies, but your character is still immortal, right? Or is still a mortal being in that world. Generally speaking, we're not talking about monks that don't age anymore. So, like, you're also a DM sometimes, right? Are you invested in the in most player characters, so to speak? Oh, hold on. On that note, how do you feel about the escalating scale of adventurer and adventure? Escalating scale. From campaign to campaign or within a singular campaign? Oh, my question to you at first was, to what degree are you invested in the characters that your players play? Oh, okay, within a singular campaign. Maybe it's a me thing, but I'm quite invested. I also am invested in the same way that I'm watching a show. And I want to see how it progresses. But I'm also kind of like quite aware that if characters die, that doesn't like break the show for me. So that is maybe just like a different perspective on the same thing. But yeah. So, your question. How do you feel about the escalating scale of adventurer and adventure within a singular campaign? I interpret that question to talk about how, like in a practical sense, I think more like an adventurer becoming becoming more powerful, more relevant, more influential, and the world itself becoming bigger because you're exploring stuff. Is that about right? Or do you mean more like in variety? Like people, how do we go from crying baby to walking hydrogen bomb? Oh, like in terms of plot, I suppose. Um, well, um, I think ideally, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like Persona 5, like Persona 5 syndrome, I guess, or like Persona syndrome in the first place. I think it's fine. I must say I don't necessarily like SMT. Shin Megami Tensei. Yeah, exactly. Um, or just JRPG syndrome. I think that might be, yeah, that's overarchingly, it's the JRPG genre that does that shit to hell and back. Alright, so what do I feel about that? Because that's the question, right? It's the, how do you feel about? I think, generally speaking, I don't think I'm a fan because it feels very forced. However, no, it's not an Altus exclusive phenomenon. Or Atlas, sorry. But on that note, even though I don't like it, I think it's kind of a necessary evil in some capacity. Like something that I kind of make a point on when prepping my stuff is that if the players want to play outside of that framework, I will allow it. And by that logic, I'm not gonna scale CR to the party 1-to-1. In fact, not at all. Preferably, like a boss fight is a boss fight, right? Like there are certain moments where it's like, okay, you're gonna do something challenging now, but I'm not gonna be like, okay, well, it was challenging when you were level 3, so now I'm gonna skill that up to your current level. No, it was challenging for level 3. You guys are over leveled at that point, so you're gonna have an easy time now. I think something like an example of that is you guys attacking a dragon at level 3 or 4, like an adult dragon. I didn't really scale it to your level at all. What I did do is his wings weren't in full power, but that's more of a story thing because he was stuck on that island. He couldn't really fly away for long enough to actually get off of it. And it's also kind of symbolic because yellow dragons are canonically the fastest ones. Which by clipping its wings, they clip like his pride was clipped in the same act. So does that make the fight easier? Yeah, slightly. Is it because I wanted it to scale to your power level? No, not at all. You guys were fighting a dragon. I'm pretty sure you know how dangerous that is. Even though you won, which kind of, I think that might be something that is kind of like, yeah, how would you say that? It's kind of like confirming the thought of, oh, you scaled it to our level, which, I mean, I don't do generally. What I have done is like, okay, well, the Daughters of the Liar, for example, the first time they appeared, you weren't really fighting them, but if you would have fought them, they would have just destroyed you. Of course, I would follow the rules. It's not like insta-death or anything, but they could, like, I had their transformations ready back then, like in session 3 or 4, I think that was. At the same time, I also want to give something to do while you get to that level. So I did put some easier things on the way there, and like giving some progress, like from milestone to milestone we did, but some like progress when you're doing stuff like story or puzzles, you still get like some quote unquote experience from that, right? So to some degree, it's still like open world I suppose. But the point is to, I mean, not holding back isn't the goal, but holding back is something that I don't like to do. I think that might be the clearest way to explain. Also, sorry that I'm playing the game so slowly, by the way. I can imagine that, like, hearing nothing for quite a while but the music, and then suddenly, like, a whole bunch of, like, mini sounds, like micro sounds, is a bit confusing. Maybe disorienting. I don't know. Like I don't want to use the term necessary evil for this because I still feel like it makes sense. Like if growth is a part of your story, then I feel like should the thread be more all-encompassing, I suppose? I mean, this is some, yeah, I know what you're getting at. Like, I know what you're talking about, but I feel like if it's in the context of the campaign we just finished, then I would say I don't really like the story, or the villain doesn't really fall in the category of like atomic bomb at all. In fact, that's something that I really regret not communicating to you in some different way. But the motives of Volmoyes was just to bring an extinct race back, one that he technically stems from, and he does everything he can to achieve that. In fact, he was kind of running like a black market to make sure that he got all the influence and materials and test subjects so he can actually achieve his goal. Does he turn into a god? Well, he might think so, but no, not even close. He was just expending his energy left and right and pretty much just bragging for most of it. But the point was never to destroy the world or destroy the area. It was mostly to bring back the Sun Giants. And something that I hid away, maybe a bit too well because you guys never really found it, is that the Sun Giants ruled under the rule of the stronger you are, like the more powerful you are, if you can force your will, then that is what happens. If you're strong enough to beat someone up, you rule over them. Is there some kind of dispute between two people? Okay, fight it out. The one who wins is right. You know, like power is literally the law for like Sun Giants, and that's what makes them kind of dangerous because they rule with a golden fist. You know. So indirectly, it might be the end of civilization, but it's not like a direct threat. It's more one guy who is sacrificing people left and right to achieve his own goals. The bigger picture? Depends on what you mean, because this scenario influenced the whole region from session 1, pretty much. Yeah, but I mean, I never really dealt with any of that. The closest I got to god level threats was Mechanus. No, I don't think so. I mean, why would I have to deal with that if if everything else is kind of still sort of balanced? I don't think like divine intervention was needed for anything particular. There was the one thing, a resurrection called upon by Walleye. Even though that was more of a transaction, it pretty much was divine intervention. I probably should have done something different for that, but yeah. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but I think one of the more boring things to do is having a god in your universe that solves everything that needs to be solved. Because then why would you, as a wizard, study for years and years and years to learn a certain spell if you can spend all that time praying for it and probably get the same result? If not greater. Which, I mean, is a bit like... No, but there's like more creative ways to stabilize them, so to speak. For example, something that I kind of like is not an all-encompassing solution per se, but something I do like to do in my campaigns is gods being in a stalemate, so to speak, on very mundane issues. Kind of like a government that isn't really efficient. Like, they have the power to change whatever they want, but if they get in each other's way, different story. So having gods, like, have a conflict of interest, in a sense, somehow does make sense in not, like, it becomes a legitimate reason for them not appearing as an active force in the world, I suppose. So ignoring them entirely, I don't know about that, but in practice that is kind of what it comes down to. Like, my apologies for the clerics in the audience, I suppose. It's just that you don't need adventurers if you have God by your side, right? You don't need a crew of unlikely heroes to solve your problems if you can ask an omnipotent being. Like, if a problem does scale to that extent, if like a problem gets out of hand and it reaches like cosmic scale, of course they would be a part of it. But I feel like that's no longer a story that can be played in the boundaries of D&D. At least I don't know how to run it. What is your BBE doing to offset the current balance? Well, it's trying to bring back a very smothering race of creatures. Because back in the olden days, it was dragons versus giants, right? In this case, it's kind of like bringing back only one sure was Boyo. Yeah, so like this is why I don't like having skipped so much lore in the campaign, because in my prep it was kind of clear, obviously. But, you know, giants versus dragons. The prime, like the original dragons and the original giants went extinct, and they're like their offshoot that kind of like um, how do you say, dwindled in quality, if you will, over time. Those are the ones who lived on, but not the original full power ones. In the case of dragons, they were constantly busy fighting giants. Now, what happens if you bring just one of those groups back? They are the only ones who can stand in the way of the other. But you bring only one of them back. Obviously, that's going to be a problem, right? Because, again, they rule with a golden fist. They rule everything that they can beat up in an easy sense. Power makes right. So in that sense, they upset the balance, because it's not like a lot can stand in the way of the sun giants on like a regular plane. So they would pretty much wipe everything up to or control everything, beat up anyone who gets in their way, up until the point where a force stands up to meet them. You know. And if that force cuts down the flower before it get to grow, then I think that's fine for an unassuming band of heroes to be doing that. No one else had taken notice up until then. It was a black market. Everyone who knew kind of liked it. Everyone who don't and couldn't really mess with the area, not even able to get in most of the time, and even if they did, they wouldn't come back. Yeah, it's kind of a dead zone there. So yeah, the party was kind of the only one who was actively trying to stop him. I think that was one of the main issues. Going on in the campaign. Not necessarily an issue of writing, but more like an in-universe issue. In my opinion. Duly noted. Okay. And ignored. Just kidding. Okay, well, I was scared for a moment, but... Is there anything else that needs to be discussed for now, you think? Okay. I guess before we both head off in that case, what would you want to play next? Because I don't know yet. I don't think they're that interested. That's my assumption though, so maybe they are. But... Do you have something in particular that you would like to play in the future? Both. And if you don't know, that's also a fine answer, by the way. Run one of my own ideas, either own campaign again or one of my other ideas, of which I have a few. So when you say run it like own campaign, do you mean just like D&D 5th? Or 2024? Play on the mostly Blades in the Dark as well. Yeah, I kind of agree on those two as well. Mostly to like finish them off, so to speak. Well, not Blades in the Dark, but like if we're playing Undead, I kind of want to get through it. I don't feel like we need a campaign to be this long. But yeah, I don't know. Nice. So what system did you want to run then? Fifth edition Blades, ACKS, maybe the Dune system, alternatively I have a Sentai and Sensibility. What is ACKS? It's not Assassin's Creed something, right? Or the Time You Need Tome, which is like 50 one-page RPG systems. That doesn't sound like something we would do every week. Like Tiny Tome. Let me look up what ACKS is. Ooh. The Adventurer Conqueror King system. Is that kind of like a war game? Strongholds. Crunchy. giant size core rule set. Which is a more Bronze Age themed RPG, more based on the older timey D&D. Okay, but is it more like, when I say war games, is it more like focused on strongholds and conquering like territory, or is it still like party going out and doing stuff? More of the former, but still the latter. Okay, so, okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about the Doom system because I don't know Doom that well. 5th edition, I'm pretty I'm aware. Blades, I'm aware. A Sentai, I think Sentai might be pretty interesting as well. What's that again? Oh yeah, okay. We'll take that. For sure. All right. But yeah. If we're gonna play a new system, one thing that I do prefer is if everyone is kind of on the same level. Or there's one person that really knows how it works and the rest all at the same level of understanding. I would find it a bit lame if there's one or two people who don't know what's going on and the rest are all speeding through the rules and like turns and stuff. So you know. But other than that, I'm willing to try new stuff. But yeah. I think this is where we're gonna stop for now. I don't know who else is watching. There's 3 people watching, it says. So probably one lurker or something. thanks for participating. We'll meet. We'll set a date for the next meetup for the group, and we'll talk about what we're gonna do. Yeah. Definitely useful stuff to know. Well, yeah. Definitely see something that you have to make happen. I'll finish this round and then time to go. Yep, that was quicker than I thought. Alright, goodbye.